Today on the channel, 2026 is here, and it's time to don your most fabulous Western shirt and the business hat as I break down what I want to see from all the toy lines in 2026.
And the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, back again, talking all things action figures in 2026 is today's video. Got the crystal ball out, got the business hat on, and kinda, business hair, maybe. But today we're talking about all the toy lines I collect. Now, part one we did on the channel, that was about wrestling and all the sub-wrestling brands that are out there. This one, we're talking Marvel, we're talking Simpsons, Mythic Legions, G.I. Joe, Todd McFarlane from the couch, and all points in between. We're going to talk about what I want to see in 2026. We'll talk a little constant learning, constant improvement, with a little business hat talk along the way. And we're going to kick it off, of course, but first, before we kick it off, got to thank Deutsch Snacking Dough sponsoring this video. Use the link in the description down below. Save yourself 20%. We kick off the discussion here with G.I. Joe Classified Series, a very popular toy line. My number one toy line of 2025, and just consistent quality, consistent everything across the board for the most part. Every once in a while they have a snafu a time or two, but man oh man did the Classified line knock it out of the park. One of my absolute favorite lines of all time, and I go back to the original G.I. Joe figures being my first ever real collection. Really love what they're doing, and like I said, it was the line of 2025. I should mention, check out all the best of top 5, top 10 videos on the channel. Celebrated everything action figures for 2025, and now we got our eyes on 2026. But we're going to dive into the G.I. Joe Classified line. Can they keep the momentum from 2025? We know we got the Arctic Hiss Tank coming here later this year. That's going to be interesting. Hopefully we get more Arctic people around that time. Can we get Stalker in his canoe? Can we get Blizzard? We'll see what we end up getting. And we got the Snowcat, of course. Can't forget the Snowcat. So it's going to be pretty cold at the end of the year. And I can't wait to snuggle up with that Flint figure. That's for sure. Of course, it was Flint with the Snowcat HasLab on the back end. But we got all that coming. We know that. But there's going to be some surprises along the way. Could we get Globulus this year? I am hopeful for that. For San Diego Comic-Con or some kind of a Hasbro Pulse. Whatever it may be, get us Globulus in 2026. Fingers crossed on that one there. But I will say it's not all good with the Classified line. They got to be careful in the character selection going forward. Now, we've got a lot of the heavy hitters, and there's still some heavy hitters to go. We do know that. And there's definitely variations on characters, Cobra Commanders of the world, and even the Dukes, that no good Dukes. There's variations on that. There's more Tiger Force, Night Force members. We know all that kind of stuff. But they got to be careful. I would hate to see the Classified line turn into the Star Wars Black Series. And unfortunately, you guys know the long torrid's tale here on the channel about the Star Wars Black Series. Hot and heavy for many years, but bowed out about 2 years ago. I just couldn't take it anymore. Same characters over and over, re-releases, not enough updates, back of the bus kind of stuff in joint department and quality department compared to the competition, like the Classified line, which is competition, even though they're both Hasbro. Just the quality wasn't there for Star Wars, the character selection wasn't there, and the price points were way too expensive. You know, all these toy lines have been taking price point. That's pretty much across the board. But I would say the Classified line has to be very wary. They don't want to go down the Star Wars hole where they start re-releasing characters and they just start giving us the same characters over and over and over. Because we all love Sneak Peek, don't we? Sneak Peek, a favorite of many? Yeah, probably not. But once you get down into the deep waters of the G.I. Joe Classified line, you're going to have the windmills and the skid marks and the sneak peeks and the psych outs. That was the cannon fodder in my childhood days. Those were the Joes that would die right off the bat. Once we start getting those, where I do welcome them in my collection once again, even the Sneak Peeks of the world, he can come on in looking like he's all nervous all the time. I'm here for Sneak Peek, but you got to give some star power with these. And what happens when we run out of star power? Well, I can see some people jumping out of the line at that point, or what we'll see is we see the Flints, the Roadblocks, the Cobra Commanders, Serpentors, all the heavy hitters just basically get re-released, just like we see with Black Series all the time. Now, I don't mind that every once in a while, but I don't want that to become the norm. I want to go deep into the collection. Now, be interested to see if they dial in from other properties, other cartoons from the G.I. Joe universe, maybe dive into some more comic stuff, and will we get some more made-up characters? They've been pretty slim pickings on the made-up stuff, but we've seen a few of them. Could we get a lot more of that? Could they reinvent the wheel and give us new characters? I don't necessarily hate that, but it's a fine line on that as well. At least from where I sit, and you guys know right here, your mileage may vary on that in the future. But I would hate to see them go the Star Wars treatment and kind of lose their way. I don't think they're ready to do that this year, but I'd say 2027, 2028, they got to be careful because I understand it. Everybody wants Flint. I would hate to deprive anyone of a Flint figure, but you're going to need to get Flint back out there. But how do you get back out there that appeals to the hardcore fan base that have been there since the beginning and the new ones? That's always the fine line once again. And I guess we're walking a fine line like a young Paul McCartney a couple of years ago on his album, as we know. And then the other one with G.I. Joe, if they can keep doing what they're doing, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape for this year as well. But the vehicles is always an important one. There's a whole segment of people wanting play sets. They want vehicles. And there's some where they say, maybe we don't need all those. And once again, it truly should be a fine line here because I like vehicles. Vehicles were important to G.I. Joe. The play sets were important. But in my adult age and space age, where you only got so much space in your house for big play sets and big vehicles, once again, I feel like they got to be a little bit careful on that. And I don't think vehicles are for everybody. And in today's market, they got to be careful with it. So I think vehicles would be an interesting one to go. Could we get like the water moccasins of the world? That's the kind of stuff I want to see. I don't know. I think you save one big vehicle a year in the HasLab and that's it. And that's kind of what they've been doing. I hope they don't try to tempt fate and push it too much and say, okay, we're doing 2 HasLabs this year. Or we're going to go all in with the Mauler and the Mobat. We're just going to start hammering us with stuff. So they got to be careful on that. But besides that, if they can replicate 2025 to 2026, I think a lot of us Joe collectors will be pretty darn happy, that's for sure. So that's G.I. Joe Classified Series. How about Super 7? We'll talk about Super 7 as a whole, specifically the Ultimate Editions. Ultimate Editions, where have you gone? They've almost all but disappeared here. We've unboxed some Thundercats on my second YouTube channel as of late here, but there's not a lot coming. We got a couple more Thundercats to come. The original Turtles line is all but dead, it seems. Obviously, they're doing some of the newer Turtles, but the original ones seem to be dead. The G.I. Joe line seems to be dead. Transformers is dead. Simpsons, long dead. What are we going to get from Ultimates going forward? Are they going to be few and far between, or are they going to wrap up and just be done with Ultimates? A lot of uncertainty with Super 7. There's been I don't want to say a hostile takeover, but people buying into the company. We've seen both their retail shops close down. We saw at San Diego Comic-Con, they didn't have as big of a presence this year as prior years. Where are they going as a company? We saw the layoffs. So there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns with Super 7. So this will be a very interesting year where they teeter back and forth. Where does Super 7 go this year? I hope they go to more things like Motorhead Ultimate Editions of Lemmy. But I don't know. It doesn't look good because we always know those are long pre-orders and we haven't really seen anything lately. So be interested to see. I think they're leaning into reaction a little bit more, and I'm not sure if there's a huge fan base. Those are just kind of one-off ancillary collections to a lot of people. I don't think anybody's all in on all the reaction stuff. So we'll see where that goes. But we're just kind of sitting here and saying, what's next for Super 7? And I don't know if every company is going to survive in this day and age. And Super 7, I hope they can make it through because say what you want. I know some people don't like the Ultimates, some people don't like the quality, but how many properties would we have never got if it wasn't for Super 7? And I really enjoyed a lot of their figures over the years, and I hope we can get back to that in 2026 and beyond. How about Marvel Legends? We'll move on to Marvel Legends, and I really thought that 2025 was a true rebound year for Marvel Legends. 2024 was a little less than for me. Felt like they didn't really have any, awesome. This year was something special with a lot of stuff, and I really felt like the Gamerverse line, obviously, the comic wave, 2 waves of the comic figures, X-Men 97, Spider-Man retro card, and then, of course, the Sentinel from X-Men 97, I think were huge for the Marvel brand this year. Really helped them get some key looks, some key characters, and some new twists on some old favorites that really helped that line, especially the Gamerverse line. That sold a lot of hearts, and it made people jump into some Marvel Legends that they previously weren't getting to buy that, to put them with their Jada Toys maybe, and other kind of things. So I really like what they did. I hope they can keep that going into next year. I think they understand, hey, we got to have X-Men 97 figures out there. The comic waves seem to be pretty good. They got to capitalize on this momentum, and they got to carry that forward. They can't have any clunkers. Now, I was against them getting rid of Build-A-Figures, which they were pretty few and far between last year. Seems like this year might be very similar to that. I don't know, but I do really like those retro carded figures. I think those are the key. I think that's a nostalgia tie-in right off the bat, and then you give us some key looks, some key characters, and some throwback characters as well. And I think the Marvel Legends team's playing a lot of hits with that. So a strong year. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep that momentum or if it's just going to be an up and down roller coaster. We'll see where 2026 goes for Marvel Legends brand. Should mention Jada Toys. Jada, the one thing I hate about Jada is it's such slow releases, but at the same time, it's nice they kind of feel like ancillary collections. Oh, I get 3 Street Fighter figures here, get 3 more 6 months later. It doesn't feel as bad to the wallet. Now, maybe that's a good move for them. Maybe they're going to hopefully ramp up production next year. We'll see where it goes. I would love to see the cereal mascot figures, the Street Fighter figures, and the Scooby-Doo figures kind of pick up production a little bit more. Once again, as I talked about in my previous video, a figure of the month club wouldn't be a bad idea if you can get us 1 Scooby-Doo figure a month, something like that. Or maybe January is Scooby-Doo, February is Street Fighter, and then March is going to be a cereal one. Like every month there's a different release out of that. Something to keep them top of mind, because I feel like Jada Toys, a lot of times, they get a lot of publicity, a lot of people reviewing their figures, things like that, and then it's just doldrums for like 2 months, and then you get another spike. You got to keep the consistency out there all the time. So we'll see. I'm sure Jada Toys is working to something like that. Simpsons, Jakks. Simpsons has been a crazy line. Once again, we're up and down. Same thing we saw with Super 7. Seen distribution issues pretty heavy with this Jakks line. I predicted that when Series 1 came out that we were going to see peg warmers that was going to hurt future waves. Now we're seeing kamikaze waves all over the plane. We're skipping waves. We're coming back to waves. Really depends on your store. And then all my Targets and Walmarts currently are all on clearance right now, all the way down to $3 at one store I saw for the Bartman figure. So that's not good for the health of the line. It's trying to find that mix, and it's always walking that balance, because you got to have the family out there pretty consistently. But do people want Lenny and Carl? I mean, hardcores do, completionists do, but the average Joe, are they going to buy just a Carl figure? No. So they got to be careful with some of those things that could border on peg warmers that hurt them, but at the same time, the family also hurts them, but the family also helps them. So it's a very confusing line. It's a very interesting line, and it's a line that could seemingly go on forever, as we do know. It'll be interesting to see where this line goes. As of right now, I think we got a king-size Homer around the corner. We'll see what's after that. So an interesting line I'm staying on to, and it's another one of those nice ancillary lines. You're paying $12 a figure. That's not a bad day at the office, if you ask me. So that's the Simpsons line. Mondo, how about Mondo? We've talked a lot of Mondo on the channel. I almost did a Mondo countdown this year. I didn't do one. But Mondo, some great figures. Quality issues are always there. I've always had quality issues. I hear it all the time. Mondo has great customer service. Yes, they do. But I guarantee you, Mondo doesn't want to have to use their customer service. They don't want to have to send out another Scareglow body. That cuts into the profit. So got to fix the quality control on Mondo, especially since we're paying so much money for these figures. And for the first time this year, because of finances and all the stuff we collect and all the raising in prices, something has to give for everybody. I don't care what your budget is. If you have $1 million a year for toys or $100 a year for toys, you had to make adjustments with all the price increases last year. And unfortunately, I had to skip She-Ra and Swiftwind. That was about $1,000. I had to skip that. I had to skip the X-Men line. I said, okay, I'm bowing out of Spider-Man. I'm bowing out of X-Men. I'm just going to get Lion-O and Mum-Ra for Thundercats. And I'm going to try to hang in as much as I can with He-Man. And that's where I've been. Everybody's got a different story, but it's too expensive for me with all the lines I collect to dive into all that stuff. However, I've been dabbling in the Ghostbusters now. I wasn't going to do that. I didn't get the deluxe editions, just the regular editions. That's good enough for me. But the thing that's nice about that, I just need the 4 Ghostbusters and I can call it a career. Maybe, maybe not. But now they're dancing into the 2000X He-Man stuff. So it's a hard thing to pass on these figures, but unfortunately the price points make a lot of us have to pass. And that's just the way it's going to be. Low run, high quality, and sometimes you could debate the quality, as we have seen, but I love the stuff Mondo does. But it's going to be an interesting year for them in 2026 with all these properties they're making: the Ninja Turtles, Thundercats, Masters of the Universe, Ghostbusters, Cedric, etc. But what happens with Funko? We keep hearing some people saying Funko's going to close their doors any day. Some people saying Funko's in really good shape. I don't think they're as good a shape as they were 10 years ago, that's for sure. But we'll see what ends up happening with Funko and how that relates to Mondo, with them being the owners of Mondo, and where that goes, if there's a fallout, if it gets split, what ends up happening. That'll be something to keep an eye on in 2026, the fate of Funko. How about Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions, Figura Obscura? Talked about this in the wrestling video a lot. They got to be careful with their time frames and their timetables. I know my dad personally, he dabbles in the Mythic Legions. He was extremely excited to get this bear. This bear was supposed to be here October 2025. And I remember him telling me in September 2024, oh man, my bear is going to be here in a month. I said, Dad, did you see the pre-orders for 2025, not 2024? Well, here we are in 2026, and my poor dad, my poor father, and I know Todd, he's got me as a son, I know. But my poor dad, here we are in 2026, he doesn't have his bear. He wants his bear, that's all he wants. And he told me the other day, he said, I hope I live long enough to see this bear. And I'm, it's supposed to come in the springtime. But like a lot of these companies, they got to tighten up the ship. If it's not going to be, if you're going to say it's going to be September, make it September. Don't make it September of the following year or whatever it may be. And a good recommendation business hat is, okay, the factory says we'll have this done in September 2026. Well, tell the fan base it's coming in October 2026, because then it buys you time if there's issues. And there seems to always be issues here. So we got delays here with the Mythic Legions. It's going to turn off some people. That's what happens. And people are like, I'm done pre-ordering. I'm sick of them sitting on my money for 2 years, especially with the Legions, where you might have 2 lines of Mythic Legions you're sitting on, maybe a line of Cosmic Legion, and maybe a couple of exclusives in the mix. All of a sudden, you got a ton of money tied up for years at a time, and a lot of people can't afford that in this day and age. So it's a very fine line. Once again, it's a fine line. That's the theme to the video, Todd McFarlane. They got to be careful, they being the Mythic Legions, the horsemen over there. Great stuff. I love the quality, but I do feel like there's too much stuff coming at us. We get these wave releases that are great and big, but then there's always these one-off figures, the figure obscuras throughout the year. And then you get these convention exclusives and you get retailer exclusives. There's a lot of different stuff. And I think unless you're just hardcore and that's all you're focused on, you can keep track of it. But for a lot of people, they just are ancillary collectors and it feels too overwhelming and it goes over their heads. And I do think they miss some sales on that. So I do think if they dialed back some of the product a little bit more, you would sell more of the product you already have. You wouldn't have to make as many different figures. You would sell more of the figures you're already making. So I think there is a line there that they got to look at, but they're doing good things. They're growing the business. They just got to be careful on these things. And they're kind of at a pivotal moment, very similar to like big rubber guys on the wrestling side. They got to be careful. They want to go like this, but you almost want to go this way instead of just like this. They got to be careful of that. And that's where I think the Mythic, Cosmic, Obscura, the whole song and dance is as of right now. How about a little He-Man talk here? He-Man, we're lumping it all together. We got He-Man, Cartoon Collection, Transformers, Origins, Thundercats, Masterverse, upcoming movie stuff. Now, the movie stuff's going to be interesting. Does that new movie resonate with a new audience, a new fan base? Because I think out of all the toy lines I collect, I think Masters of the Universe, He-Man of the Masters of the Universe, has done the worst job of growing their fan base and getting to other generations. It feels like it's people, within my age bracket, give or take some years, that are buying this stuff, that are into this stuff. I don't hear a lot of kids, and there's always going to be one out there, there's going to be 2 out there that enjoy it, but for the most part, these kids aren't transitioning into He-Man. It's like, I want Wolverine, I want wrestlers, I want whatever. We're not seeing the love for He-Man. We see a lot of clearance, we see a lot of stuff not selling. I don't know, and we get a lot of product from He-Man, which can't be good for Mattel's bottom line. But I think that's the hope of this new movie. You can educate and turn on a whole new fan base to this world of the Masters of the Universe. Now, for old heads like me and Todd over there, you might turn off some people because this isn't my He-Man movie. This isn't my style of He-Man, Skeletor, and so forth. And you get all these new toys and everything. It could be a huge turnoff if Mattel, of course, they're about the money at the end of the day. They don't care about us. They only care about us if we're going to buy the product. If they find somebody new to buy the product, they'll move on to them and they'll leave us in the dust. That's just how it is. Follow the money, Jesse Ventura style, as we say. So it'll be interesting to see where that movie ends up going and if that captures the heart and soul and imagination of a whole new generation of He-Man fans. I don't know if it will. I'm definitely going to see the movie. I'm in for it. I just don't know if I'm in for the figure lines. We'll see what happens. There's supposed to be a bunch of lines around that. We'll see where that ends up going. But Cartoon Collection sounds like all but dead. I'm waiting on Queen Marlena, and it sounds like 1, 2, 3 Marlenas, like a young Jacob Dylan and the Wallflowers. that's going to be sayonara. That's going to be the it for that line. We'll see if that ends up happening. Origins, you're upsetting a lot of fan bases over there saying, can we just finish the Origins line? Quit dallying around and putting one figure out every once in a while. People want it to be done, but I also put on my business hat. I see what Mattel is doing. They're saying, hey, let's just slow down the Origins. That's what's brought us to the dance. That's what's getting the eyes on us. If we go slow there, some of these collectors will buy some of this other stuff. I see what they're doing. I see through it. Todd sees through it too. But will we complete Origins in 2026? What if we never complete Origins? Of course, based off the original figures, that would just really upset a fan base. So I hope they do finish it off in 2026. You got the Target exclusive Transformer crossover that I don't know if anybody really asked for. Feels like it's not setting any worlds on fire. Every Target I go to on clearance, and I think the clearance is going to drop another, I think they're at $16 now. I would imagine in the next week, if probably by the time you guys are watching this video, they're probably down to $9 or cheaper. Who knows where they're at? But I just don't think they set the world on fire. I will say the Starscream, Scareglow, and the He-Man Optimus Prime were better than the Skeletor and Man-at-Arms from Series 1, so maybe that'll help some stuff. I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure if anybody really asked for it, and I don't know if this line is going to be dead or they're going to try to get one more out there. As of filming, we're not so sure on that. Thundercats line feels like one of the biggest retail toy misses of all time. It always, when I was a kid, felt natural. Thundercats and He-Man, you wanted to play them together. They felt like they could belong in the same universe, and for whatever reason, did not resonate with the fan base. And I don't know if it was the looks of the characters, what exactly it was. Is there Thundercats fans? Is there a bigger fan base for Thundercats? It feels like maybe there isn't really a fan base for Thundercats that is into buying figures and stuff. Not exactly sure, but it felt like it could have been such a slam dunk that it really went out with a whimper, and it sounds like Series 3 is going to be all she wrote on that one. We'll see where that ends up going there. And then you got the Masterverse line, which really dipped pretty hard with some of the cartoon stuff from Netflix. It was like too all over the place. It feels like they've found their groove with the new Eternia. I'm hoping to see them continue on with the success of 2025 into 2026. We'll see where that all ends up going in the future there. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think the key for Masters Universe in 2026 is capture as many new fans to the property as they can to hopefully keep this on for current generations and into future generations. Because if this movie flops, it doesn't do very well, I got to think the He-Man as a brand will be on life support. It could be a Mattel Creations exclusive at that point. We'll see what ends up happening, but they got to do something to get the new fan base, the younger fan base involved in Masters of the Universe. And we'll see where that goes. And we're going to finish up this video here. I'm just going. I'm rocking and rolling, strutting and strolling. That's what we do here. We're going to Todd McFarlane and McFarlane Toys, and we'll talk a little Mattel in this one as well. Obviously, Mattel is taking over the DC Multiverse lineup, or the DC line. I forget what they're calling it. They're not calling it Multiverse. They're calling it something else. But it sounds like that's going to start June, July timeframe, San Diego Comic-Con timeframe. Let's basically call it that. And then dwindling throughout the rest of the year. So we still got a year with Todd here on the couch. If not, we're taking a lease year by year at this point, Todd. But we'll see where that ends up going. Obviously, there's going to be some crossover. Todd said he's not totally out of the game. I wouldn't be shocked to see DC statues from McFarlane. Maybe keep the Super Friends style figures, scale figures going on. Maybe some tie-ins working with Mattel on vehicles. I could see that as a possibility. Who knows? With Todd McFarlane at the helm, you know anything is possible with that guy over there. But it is finishing up, and it is kind of the end of the era. Really feels to me a lot like 2009, 2010 when Jakks lost the wrestling license for me. It was kind of where I was like, well, I'm done. It's a good bookend. I'm going to be done. I'm not going to jump into Mattel. Great time to call it a career, and that worked out pretty good for me. My first kid was born in 2010. I remember looking at my wife, I'm going to save a ton of money now as there's no more Jakks to be bought. I'm not going to do Mattel. Now I can buy all these pesky diapers and bottles and doctor bills and all that kind of fun stuff. But then it caught me back in with Warrior and stuff, and I have a feeling that Mattel might do that. Right as of now, I'm saying, hey, I'm just going to get a couple of the heavy hitters, and that's it. I know my personality. I know what I do. I'll snowball into madness, but it'll be interesting. I feel like Mattel will not pump out as much product as Todd McFarlane does with the DC Multiverse line. However, look at their Elite line for WWE. If they try to match that, we're all in trouble. And we all know there's enough DC looks to do that if they want to. But the rumors are, as of right now, we're going to have like a basic line, an elite line, and an ultimate line. Maybe that's what I do. I just collect the ultimate version. Maybe I just do something like that. I don't know. We all got to answer our own questions on that, what we want to do with our funds. But I'm hoping that Todd goes out hot this year. Let's go out all guns blazing like Judas Priest in 1991. Let's do it like Painkiller album style. I would love to see that. I just wonder what's going to happen. I can see, I've been saying this for a while, I can see McFarlane Toys re-releasing some hard-to-find figures. Let's get as much money as we can on our way out. I also worry that we're going to see McFarlane Toys just basically drop the ball and just go simple on the way out. Let's knock back the decorations, the paint. Let's really dumb everything down. Let's just fulfill some contracts and stuff. Let's save the money, because let's be honest, if you were losing a toy line, if your organization, you knew you only had a couple of months left, you try to get the sales you could, but you're not going to be investing. You're not going to be investing in new molds and new head scans and all this stuff to be used once and then disappear forever. You're not going to put a lot of money into the business, and I worry about that, especially in the back half for McFarlane Toys. Todd's a different duck, though. I know you are a different duck. You're waving those feet around over there. I hope you go out all guns blazing, but I would not be shocked to see him go the Jakks route, where we just got re-releases of figures in just plain black trunks, no decor on them, no nothing. Just finish what you can, get what you can out there, and I would not be shocked to see a ton of McFarlane stuff ship like 12/31/2026, and then it'll be on the shelves for a couple of months into 2027. It'll be interesting to see where that goes, but it truly is the end of an era. But at the same time, Todd has all this money wrapped up in that DC license. Well, all of a sudden you're not paying that money anymore. Where do you do with all this money you have sitting around? Where do you put that to? Could he dive into Power Rangers? Could he dive into Ninja Turtles? We know they're up from Playmates this year. Could he dive into wrestling? If Jazzwares truly is getting out of the AEW business, does Todd McFarlane say, hey, I'm stepping up, I'm partnering with I'm partnering with AEW, we're going to make the greatest wrestling figures of all time? Could that happen? Stranger things have happened, and I think Todd's going to have to plug a hole, and Todd and I are both masters at plugging holes. We go airtight all the time, don't we, Todd? That's what's going to happen. I can see Todd jumping into something, so I wouldn't count him out. It's going to be very interesting come San Diego Comic-Con, Toy Fair time, and all points in between for a lot of these properties. But Todd and the boys over there at McFarlane Toys will be one of the interesting ones to keep an eye on as we close out 2026. So that's it. That's the little business hat. That's a little talk on the properties. I still think G.I. Joe's in the driver's seat going into 2026, but you never know. You never know. They could be caught slipping if they're not careful. But what are you thinking about 2026? What do you think about these properties? Let me know in the comments down below where you think a lot of this stuff is going. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and my other YouTube channel, 2 YouTube channels with content every single day. Check out, of course, SirPaul64 on the X, _Kyle_Peterson on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and TheKylePetersonShow at gmail.com. Also the name of my podcast, The Kyle Peterson Show. How convenient, right, Todd? Every single Tuesday, my wife and I break it all down with bonus video on YouTube. And then, of course, check out Patreon YouTube channel memberships to support the channel. And don't forget about Deutsch Snacking Dough. Support the channel, pick up some, use the link, save yourself 20%. Got to get a deal out there. So for a little 2026 Western Shirt business hat talk, I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.
Well, are we gonna dance or are we gonna play?